Hey there, welcome to Idea to Impact, a podcast that I started with the initiative to share a raw and authentic inside view of how business mechanics work, especially as a startup. And I've had the incredible honor and privilege to interview some of South Africa's greatest entrepreneurs. Specifically in this episode, I am speaking to Piet Mouton, the CEO of the PSG Group, as well as Craig Berman. Both these gentlemen are absolutely remarkable in the way they think. They've both been around the block a few times in terms of the way they operate, and their answers really aren't something that, well, they definitely aren't things that I expected to hear from. And it's very interesting to hear the South African perspective to business, because obviously, although business follows like kind of a template across the world, listening to other businessmen from Australia, America, and everywhere else in the world, South African businessmen definitely have a different perspective. And you'll hear in this podcast in specific that there's definitely a completely different perspective that South African businessmen take. And yeah, so just enjoy the podcast. I'm not sure where this is going to go. I'm not sure how far or what I'm going to do in terms of the podcast Idea to Impact. These episodes were both filmed in 2022, around July. So yeah, sit back, relax, and enjoy the podcast. And yeah, let me know if there's anyone you want me to interview. I have the ability, well, not really the ability, but I'm able to get into contact with some of South Africa's biggest entrepreneurs, CEOs, businessmen, politicians. So let me know who you'd like to see me interview. Maybe if you'd like to meet up with me or have coffee with me or speak to me, please send me a message. I love meeting people, having coffee, making new friends. So yeah, speak to me about that. And yeah, enjoy the podcast. As you see, as you can see, I'm very relaxed, very open, very raw, very authentic. So yeah, let me know what you think. Enjoy. So the very first question that I have to ask you, and it's something that I think you'll enjoy answering and maybe reminiscing about your past. But the first thing is, what's one thing in your business venture that you didn't expect? So what's one thing in your business venture from, I mean, obviously you've had a huge venture as, I mean, I've read a lot about you and I've heard a lot about you. And you were actually featured on the 702 The Money Show by Bruce Whitfield, who is very good friends with Mr. Craig Berman. And I'd like to hear from you. What's something that you've learned in your, or what's one thing that's happened in your previous business venture that you didn't expect?
I mean, that's a quite an extensive question you asked there. So maybe just to explain a little bit about PSG Group, just to put it into context. I mean, I'm actually second generation in the company. The business was started in 95 by my father. I think he's the true legend, just to be fair. So we're an investment company. So the premise of the business was we'll buy into a lot of smaller type businesses and try and build it out over the years. If you ask me, most unexpected was the phenomenal success that Capitec has become. I mean, this was a business that um, my father and them started in '98 by buying about 300 micro lending businesses, and wasn't a pretty business at that stage. These shops in the back alley, and we got extremely lucky to get people like Michiel Leroux on board, and later on an entire management team with Rian Stadsen, Andre Du Plessis, Harry Fourie, and they've built the best business that I think we've seen in South Africa the last 25 years. And the momentum that it's got has been phenomenal. So, you know, if you go back in time, I mean, I was still at university in '98 when the first building blocks were put into place. if you had to ask anybody back then, would we reach this level of success, I think it would have laughed. It wasn't even dreamt up at that stage. But as the success came along, and they just keep on coming up with new ideas. So, that's most probably the right answer to your question.
Could I jump in and ask a couple of questions as well, Liam, as I'm so eager to talk to Piet.
That is why you're here.
Thank you. Piet, it's an honor to chat to you. Your success is legendary. Is it more difficult to mobilize ideas today than it was then?
I do think so. But every time things change, it brings new opportunities.
Yes.
The whole tech space, I do think being young and energetic, you will look at the world in the right way. Whereas as people go on in life, it's more difficult to rethink or adjust to a new world. In our specific example, the company became very big. So at its peak, it had assets of about 80 billion. Now it's very difficult in that sense to do something new that can add value. But we're in a process now to make the company a lot smaller again. So 2 years ago, we unbundled Capitec, so it's not part of the group again. And we're essentially unbundling the major listed assets out of the group and then taking the company private, which would see the portfolio sit at about 4 billion. And I do think that creates a lot more interesting opportunities. You can do a lot more deals of the 50, 100 million in size. And if they grow, it actually makes a difference. If you've got 80 billion of assets and you do 100 million rand transaction and it doubles in size, it should actually be quite celebrated. It doesn't even move the needle on an 80 billion portfolio. But if the portfolio is smaller, we can go at some smaller assets again. And it's quite satisfactory if you start something new and it gets a bit of traction in the right direction. It does create a lot of positive joy.
I'm not sure if you've read the Investec book and the founders of Investec, and when they talk about starting the bank, that they were all almost cowboys on this great journey, and they had no idea of what they were going to discover along the way. Has it been a similar trajectory for you in your development, in your dad's legacy of building this wonderful empire?
It is the same thing. Especially when PSG originally started out, used the word cowboy. Let's just stick with that word for the moment. Unfortunately, life has changed a lot since then. I've been quite open in the market about increasing red tape and how difficult they make it to build businesses. When Kosef and Kantor started Investec, the regulatory environment was a lot more simple. We've seen over the last 20 years, it's become so difficult to move. You've got the Prudential Authority and the FSCA almost permanently asking questions. Now, it makes it a lot more difficult. It makes it more difficult for people to start up a new bank. I think what the guys at Investec did, and you can even put the 3 founders of First Rand in there and Capitec to do it today, I think would be a lot more difficult. I think before you get going, you'll be squashed with regulations. So you've got to be a certain size to be able to do that. Having said that, I mean, the current environment creates a lot of opportunities for fintechs and tech companies who don't have those legacy systems. So they can work around the system and maybe come up with better solutions to build their businesses going forward, which unfortunately the guys that are 20, 30, 40, 100 years old simply cannot do. The system moves too slow. So I always believe there are opportunity for smart people out there.
And what is your take, I mean, on South Africa currently? I mean, there are so many sides of the coin. Obviously, we're here to stay, and we believe that there is great emerging opportunity. And you've just mentioned the tech space. I mean, where are you seeing opportunities that you, as a business, are deploying energy in right now?
So, firstly, I have to say I'm highly disappointed in how this country is being run.
Sure.
We really hoped Ramaphosa, or President Ramaphosa, was going to bring a new dawn and implement some pro-business decisions, but it's not been the case. Unfortunately, the last couple of years we've had COVID and the massive supply chain problems across the world. So I don't think it's easy anywhere in the world right now. The Ukraine-Russia war has also seen the oil price spike, and inflation is increasing all over the world. So it's not an easy environment. So we always try and look for markets that are deep and large. So we try to play heavy on the education side. We've got Curo Stadio, which is a tertiary operation, and we've got Optimi, which is the largest distance learning or at-home learning organization in South Africa. Highly excited about the energy space and the opportunities that would bring. So there is a little bit of trying to play in markets where government is failed to a large extent. I do think the energy space is slightly different. If we put the Eskom debacle aside, the entire green revolution and alternative energy brings a lot of opportunity. And the trick is to find the right management that can deliver on that. Because you look at what they're going to spend worldwide on energy delivery, and you've got the electric cars coming in, creates a lot of interesting opportunity. Nobody truly knows how it's going to play out and where 100% the right space is to play. But you've got to try at least.
Sure. Do you believe in privatization in South Africa? Do you think that would be a good derivative to focus on from a government perspective?
Well, that would be fantastic to privatize everything that's state-owned enterprise. We should privatize.
Sure.
Because it has to do with if it's privatized, private capital needs returns.
Sure.
Shareholders will ensure that it's not cronyism that sits at the top of the pile.
Yeah.
That the workforce is right-sized, and that we don't just talk and have meetings, we actually deliver on what we're going to say. So I'm a big proponent of privatization. I mean, if you think about the nonsense with SAA, I mean, you can put Eskom aside because it's hurt South Africa so badly. But you look at countries, I mean, just on that, you look at countries like the entire Western world have privatized their energy system. And if there's a shortfall of supply, then people can just go and build new power stations and plug in. But the amount of money we've lost at the likes of SAA is absolutely ridiculous. Because why do we need a national carrier? They've been flying for a year or two, and other people just stepped up and put planes in place. You don't have to fund that from a government perspective. If there's a need to fly somewhere and there is demand, some third party will put in, will buy the route.
I mean, you're in the confidence business at the end of the day. How difficult is it to spin a story where there's no power? How do you, I mean, if you have a look at PSG and everything that you offer, and we'll talk about, you know, what you envisaged and where you are now and the bandwidth of the business. But at the end of the day, it's about confidence. Surely anything that you launch, anything that you do, you're instilling confidence in the idea. And then, of course, you're hoping the support is there for people to believe. How do you deal with that, with all these obstructions along the way?
So I mean, we're gonna be honest. There's no silver bullet to it. It's obviously massively disappointing. I mean, you got to rework your business if there's no electricity. But then I really must say we've got some very resilient managers within the group, or executives, however you want to refer to them. They seem to have risen to the occasion and made alternative plans and worked different hours and come up with quite innovative solution. I mean, obviously, it's significant cost to the bottom line. In manufacturing is especially tough. If the power goes out and you've got no supply, because it takes time to start up the factory again. But you work around it. I mean, like most of our companies are SA focused.
Yes.
So you start up and you say everybody's got the same issue, right? It's not that we've got a unique issue.
Sure.
Everybody operating in South Africa, we just got to be smarter and better than the competitors in South Africa. And
are we in tune? Do you wake up in the morning and believe that you're in tune with what's going on the ground? How do you refine your arrow in as far as expanding your business and bringing new products to the fold?
Well, sitting in Stellenbosch, you're a little bit isolated on that side. Everything seems to work over here. I mean, we're quite fortunate in that we got a diverse business that operates in a lot of spheres. And I mean, there are about 20 CEOs that we engage often. And some guys are affected by the ports or heavy rains in Natal or operating in the north in Limpopo. So you get to discuss quite in depth the issues and the challenges that they have. So you don't always have to be there. Just from engaging with the individuals on a regular basis, you get a very good idea what's going on in South Africa.
I mean, Jack Welch says it quite articulately, saying that the role of a CEO is to find the right people for the right seat. And it's a lifetime vision to do that. And it sounds like you've mastered that. You have a great core of quality people that you...
I wish I could say to you, I've mastered it. It's not so simple.
Sure.
We've been fortunate and blessed to bump in some of the greatest executives in South Africa, but we still make errors. I mean, when you join a business, or let's take Liam starting out, I mean, he's got a lot of energy and full of ideas and wants to change the world.
By Japan.
You'll only know how good he is in years to come, when he hits a couple of challenges and things aren't working. Has he got the ability to find a workaround? If a direction is taken at the outset doesn't play out like the original hypotheses, can he change it? Can he adapt? Now, we've had many people who were able to adapt and change, and we've had others who've struggled with it, and quite frankly, disappointed significantly. I mean, ideally, your question is, can I have a chat with the guy over a couple of months and say, this guy is fantastic?
Sure.
I can categorically tell you, no, I cannot do that.
Sure. Yeah,
Yes,
it takes
and
time.
I'm sure it does. And I'm one of those people that are like, I want to buy Japan, and tomorrow I need to work with Coca-Cola, and I'm very quick to like wanting to work with these huge companies, and I want to take over the world. But getting back to the very small level topics that I wanted to ask you, and I brought Craig Berman on to speak about the high level topics that I can't speak about. But what I wanted to ask you was that, and I spoke to Mr. Rowland about this from PPC, and I asked him what his decision process is, because I mean, you obviously work with an education sector, an agricultural sector, you work with the finance sector. So as I mean, your job is obviously to consult on and to manage all of these different groups in all of these different sectors. What decision-making process do you apply, if there actually is one, to make high-quality decisions on industries that you might not have the best insights in? Because, I mean, the PSG Group owns many different companies in many different sectors. So what decision-making process do you make and do you go through to make these high-quality decisions that obviously has kept PSG as this incredible company?
So first and foremost, you've got to remember that in an investment company, the decision-making process is quite lengthy. From the very first engagement until you actually do something is quite a long time. So it's not, I meet you, we invest and happy-go-lucky. It's a little bit like a marriage. There's a
complicated.
There's a lot of dating going on prior to making the investment, and I mean, as I answered Craig, in this marriage or the pre-marriage phase, the honeymoon phase, you try and get to know your partner as good as you can. And you want to see if their thinking, at least on the face of it, is differentiated. It doesn't mean they can pull it off in the long run. But you want to start off with, if you break it down into basic format, how are they going to be better than the competitors? They have to be thinking differently. I mean, you cannot just start a business that looks like everybody else out there. If you do that, then you got
the next Mark Zuckerberg isn't going to create Facebook.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult to compete because the market is captured. But unless you come in with a lower cost product, a better product, or a better service, But it's a lot better to have a differentiated product that the market wants at the end of the day. And that's where one should get your head around in the face. Because once you start talking, I would say the average transaction, and unfortunately with ever increasing red tape, it takes longer and longer. But you're at least 3-4 months of dating before you get to contracting. So I've got a highly capable team over here as well at PSG Group. By no means individual show over here, that each have their own level of skills. We've got the guys who are a lot more skeptic. We've got people a lot more pro. Let's just do the deal. They love doing deals. And then there are different sets of skills. And obviously they're fundamental things that stay similar to businesses across sectors. I mean, there's nothing the same in the product between Cape Span that sells and produces and sells grapes and Kiro that teaches learners. But there are a lot of fundamentals that are the same. Things like corporate governance is non-negotiable for us. That people need to report on time. They got to find a way to bring across the information simple. They always got to be honest with us, give us a clear idea, tell us quickly if there are issues, and the like. I'm not talking about red tape. I'm talking here about good management information, because that sits at the heart of it at the end of the day. Because we've got good information, we can assist you with your plans at the end of the day.
It's interesting.
Yes, of course.
And sorry.
No worries. So you obviously mentioned that when you're looking at one of these companies, and specifically a company to invest in, and you sit with a CEO and you obviously work with them in the dating and honeymoon phase, what personality traits do you look for in these people? Because, I mean, I've done a lot of reading on you, and one thing I've come across is that you have extreme confidence. And I mean, that article you wrote on the vaccinations obviously showed a lot of confidence. And one of your quotes about how negative people don't accomplish anything, that's also a very strong personality trait. So what characteristics and personality traits do you look for in these people that you would deem investable?
Okay, I can tell you
Sorry, I do tend to put you on the spot, sorry.
but it's a more difficult question to answer. I mean, at the very basis, the person has to be absolutely passionate about what they do, and they got to live that. It's got to be fundamentally the most important thing for them at the end of the day. Then they need to be driven. But to tell you how diverse the personalities are that we get to work for at the end of the day, but at the core, these people need to be passionate and driven.
Sure.
If you don't have that, the rest actually needs to come along. I mean, I'll give you an example. My dad, who started the business, we're having a Sunday lunch. And the only thing my father could talk about was PSG at that stage. This is in the early phases. And my sister, who's 6 years younger than me, said, "Jessie pa, kan ons weer 'n bietjie iets anders te praat? Ons verstaan heeltemal dat jy jou favorite kind is, maar jy het 3 anders hier, so kan ons 'n bietjie aan hulle ook belangstel." Now, I mean, if you find a person like that, who lives and breathes what they do, lie awake at night and want to build it. You can go and read the books about Steve Jobs and the like. I mean, they were so driven in business and they went straight to the top of the pile, but they lost a lot of other things
along the way
in terms of life. I mean, he didn't really have a personal life with his wife and kids, etc. But that's a person you want to invest in, where the company ultimately is his baby.
Yes.
That's the best prize if you get a person like that. I don't say that's a healthy way of living. I'm just saying that's the type of person you want to invest in.
But it's the same method behind it, as no one's going to look after your house as well as you do, because obviously if you build up your company, no one's going to look after it as well as you do, because it's your baby, it's what you've built. And I love your response. And Craig, do you have to say anything to that?
I absolutely do. But, Liam, you are inspirational for me, and I'm sure Piet will agree, but you are intriguing. And if I may say, at 19 years old, to be such an old soul and to ask all these questions and be interested. And you and I have spoken, Liam, and there's only one way to be attractive in life. Either you've got to be interested or interesting. And I'm sure Piet will benchmark that. But the question that I wanted to ask Piet is, and we know that the mother of all necessity is invention. And when we go back to that word of value, because it's all about value, and I need to go back 3 steps. I've always said that we live in a more for less environment, or a less for more. How do we create value? COVID has corrected
Craig,
the way we...
I think you've broken up a bit. You've broken up a little bit.
Am I in or out?
Oh dear.
Am I gone?
Still recording video at high quality.
I
His
think
internet is weak. All right. So before he comes back, I wanted to ask you about the... Oh dear. That's... All right. Okay. So while Craig comes back...
I was smart enough to re-edit this afterwards.
Yes, we'll edit.
All right. Okay, Craig. I think you're back with us.
Oh gosh, then I'm going to summarize it. How do we create value in our lives in business? Because it's often that we live in a more for less environment where people want more for less. The retailer, in essence, wants less for more. How do we build value in, and how in your decision making process do you find value in being able to launch ideas and to create ideas in the market to be mobilized?
You ask some of the most difficult questions I've ever been asked.
I'm sorry, Piet, I didn't mean that.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's obviously the constant challenge at the end of the day, because if you don't create more value for the customer at the end of the day, and somebody else does it, you become irrelevant. So we're constantly challenging the management teams to push the boundary. I mean, one thing that we also instill in the companies is that they must have two times a month they got to have excos. If it's a new investment, we'll get somebody to sit in on it just to track that they are doing what they're saying. And then at least once a year, you've got to have but we always call it a strategic conference. And the management team essentially cannot really come and talk about how they are doing business now. They have to come and talk about the blue sky and what they can do to change this business to the new level. And I mean, depending on the size, these are from 1 to 2 day events. But you've really got to go and sit back and think. You can't, again, if you're into grapes, you can't come and tell me about schooling. It's too far apart. It's got to be taking your business to the next level. What would you like to implement? What sort of tech? What can you do to bring the cost base lower? How can you get new clients that haven't been your clients to date? And it's get the people to think a little bit different, and to get people in the organization, different people, to come up with ideas. It's not just the CEO giving you a whole day lecture. I mean, nobody can sit through that. It will become tedious at the end of the day. And so you also learn new people in the organization. You start to see who are the up-and-coming guys who have interesting ideas. You get to learn them a little bit better. So, I mean, that's essentially important. And the companies who do it well push forward a lot harder. I mean, it's an absolute pleasure to sit on, if you have a conference in Capitec, and see what they think and plan and how they think the world's going to shape up. I mean, that's the biggest one in the group, and you've got 20 million clients. What can you do with it? It's not just saying we've got 20 million clients, yes, we've won. It's about how can we make it better for them, and how can we get the other 20 million clients that we haven't got. I mean, that's the entire philosophy. At Kiro, when we have strategy meetings, is our firm belief at Kiro is that with the whole COVID situation, is that schools will remain relevant, because you want to go and park your kid from 8 till 5 at a safe environment. You can't deal with your kids 365 days a year at home. They need a place where they can get a holistic environment. But education will change fundamentally. And we saw this with all the online education. We think it's going to be a lot more digitally driven, standardizing, people getting going away from just repeating. I mean, yeah, I'm sure that's how you still studied, but Greg and myself definitely were. It was all about studying something and then see how much you can write back the very next day. I mean, that's not relevant in the world of education anymore. You ask me any question, I go to Auntie Google, type it in, and she gives me the answer. So to remember anything has become a lot less relevant. You must idea generation and the like is a lot more important to see how a person thinks. And hopefully, in time, you can change education to bring a lot more of that into it. And so we have interesting discussions. And I say where they think it's.
I'd love to be a fly on that wall.
It's extremely interesting. And you can actually sit the whole day and listen to people when they talk about like that. When we do red tape, I find that it's you gotta spend a lot of time drinking coffee.
Tell us about your daddy. Tell us about your dad and the major influence he's had on your life.
He was a phenomenal, inspirational person. I mean, as I explained, he left PSG, but he came from a humble background. He grew up in Carnarvon, it's a little place in the middle of the Karoo.
Wow.
Studied at Stellenbosch and then started working as an accountant. So I started CA, and then he was fairly young when he started stockbroking firm. And you remember at that stage, that was an English and Jewish dominated space. It was like to say, within a couple of years, he became the largest Afrikaans stockbroking firm in the world.
Wow.
No, okay, I think there were only 3. So.
Okay.
But and he said he had a phenomenal team. My father obviously had 1 or 2 flaws in terms of people management, and he came in the one day. He was the lead partner of the stockbroking firm called Piet Mouton and Kitsoff at that stage. And his partners sat him down and they effectively fired him. And this was 95. I was first year at that stage. He was a little bit too embarrassed to tell me he got fired, so he said to me he'd resigned. I thought it was quite early to resign, but anyway. So we moved on, and he got I think that was, in reflection, his lucky break in life.
Sure.
Because 6 months later, he found a listed business that was well-managed. It was called Professional Assignments Group, and him and the other founder, Chris Otto, bought control of the business for 7 million rand, the value of that company. A year later, they sold the personnel agency for 107 million rand. So they had quite a bit of capital, and that was before the days of capital gains tax. So
Sure.
quite a bit of firepower. And that's when they needed to change the name. So the companies were listed alphabetically in some of the newspapers. So they decided they can't change it too much. So they replaced the A with the S. PSG actually stands for nothing. I actually made a speech one day.
Pizza Geld.
Yeah. Okay. There's that one.
I watched it. It was awesome.
And then they started various financial services businesses. I already explained in 98. They bought micro lending shops, but they bought insurance. 2 months after they started, 5 of his ex-partners at SMK joined him. That is what is PSG Consult today. And tried many different things, and everything didn't go right. You obviously read a lot about Buffett.
Sure.
Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, and now you can invest the free float that you get from that. But life had moved on. There's significantly more regulation in terms of what you can do with the free float.
Yeah.
So you never quite got to invest that at the end of the day. And then in about 2002, we changed the business to be more of an investment holding company, and we started making investments outside the financial sphere at the end of the day, and started doing different things. And unfortunately, he got sick a couple of years ago.
And you in your life with your family, do you have kids that have aspiration to be in the business? How are you conducting the Sunday lunch at your table?
I think it's slightly different at the end of the day. I think my kids might have different challenges at the end of the day. I mean, I was actually at university and finished university before my father started having a lot of success. So fundamentally, I came from a tired, different background. I mean, from my side, I would like my kids to go and do what they love. whatever it is, I will back him. It's just got to be properly structured, and they got to believe in it and build it out from there at the end of the day. I don't think I'm going to push them to become business people if that's not
their passion.
Not their passion. I think you heard kids. I've got one. The oldest one is most probably, he really likes IT. I'm going to encourage him to go into that direction. Either become an engineer or IT specialist. I don't really know what you call the degrees, because I don't think if you go into IT, you should ultimately study a formal degree. I think if you study IT at Stellenbosch, you're studying a language that's not relevant in the world of programming anymore. I mean, Liam would be able to tell us a lot more about that. That's at least my take, which is taking IT at school, and they don't program in that language anymore. It's not relevant, but he really likes it. So that's definitely something that I would encourage. Just whatever you do it with passion and go at it full tilt. Don't look back at your life and say you could have done more.
Sure. So, go, Liam.
I'll go very quickly. So, I spoke with Andrea. He was the CEO. He is the CEO of Equitas Property Fund, and he also has children, and he actually has a son in first year at the moment. And I can speak from experience. I took IT last year, and every single person in my IT class hated it. And I have a background in software development and app development, so I can speak on going into an industry, and specifically in IT, everything's moving so quickly. I mean, there's already a new technology that's emerging, which is blockchain technology. So I don't think that you can actually go and study something that you can go and study a specific language, and you can study a specific field, because I think everything's changing so quickly. And something I learned from my conversation with Andrea is that he said going to university, it doesn't matter what you study. It's more about being able to show that you're able to manage high level amounts of stress and handle under pressure, because I understand that at university you get put under a lot of pressure, and this is a decision that I need to make for next year and see, because I'm going to go and study, but I don't yet know what I want to do and where I want to go in, because I'm one of those people that I want to do everything and I enjoy doing everything. So the question of education and what to study is definitely a thing that's very high on my radar, and something that's on my radar. So I wanted to ask you about if you were 19 again, what would you have gone to study?
So it was a lot more basic in my day. I was quite good at mathematics, so I had to go and study actuarial science.
And that's exceptional. I have a friend that's studying actuarial sciences at the moment, and it's definitely the most difficult degree you can do.
So I would not go and study that again. So I actually looked at that first couple of questions you asked, Andrea. It remains an interesting thing. So I went to Stellenbosch, just to answer that part of it. I do think the biggest benefit to me, if I say in the long run, is the networks that you build over there. If you into the right crowds, I mean, you can spend your university life in a number of ways. The universities, unfortunately, in my mind, very bad at training people for the world of work. But I would agree with Andrea in the sense that it shows that you've got a certain level of commitment to get your degree at the end of the day. So it's also about phases in your life. You've got your entire life ahead of you. There is a phase, if you're 18, 19, 20, 21, where there is a enjoyment factor to it. You learn a lot of people, you get it out of your system, and you enjoy it. I mean, one of the other things I did after university, I went and worked on a ski resort and then traveled America for a little bit, and that was sort of 4 months, and then I started working. If I had to do it all over again, I think I should have taken a year off and traveled. Because it's just a lot easier. Once you start working, you should be committed to your trade. Then eventually in your late 20s, maybe you get married, you start a family. Now it's impossible. Now you're stuck for another 10, 15 years. And by a certain stage, you reach the philosophy that the youth is wasted on the young. Because when I go traveling now, there's certain stuff, but I don't really want to get hurt anymore because the recovery phase is too long.
Yeah.
But when you start snowboarding, you can go skydiving, everything's just easy and more simple. So just keep that in mind. If you've got an opportunity, there's a time in the world where you're running off the bulls. You can do it at age 22. I don't think it would be a clever thing to go and do at age 45 or 50. It's not 60, even a worse idea. So there are things that you can go and do and you can enjoy a lot more, because then life takes over. Now, people would differ a lot with that philosophy. I know my dad differed significantly with it. He couldn't understand why people took a year off to go and travel the world. You should start working immediately, working on your career. But I think things have changed. I also think that people used to work to age 60. I think that's going to change as well as people get older, and you can stay involved with things on the side. And I can almost not think how if you have nothing keeping you driven, you must get old very quickly. So that's also going to change. You might as well do.
And I think. And I think what's changed a lot as well is that, look at us today. We are chatting face to face and we have exceptional quality depending on how good your Wi-Fi is. But I think that children nowadays are able to work with anybody, anywhere in the world. And I think that it's become a lot easier to work, and it's become a lot easier to make money. I wasn't alive in the 80s. I think that in the digital world, it's specifically become a lot easier to be able to compromise a lot less than I think you had to do in the old days. Because nowadays, if I want to do my accounting, I can find a software online and do every accounting thing that I need in a few seconds. And I think that everything's sped up, and you can start a business, you can buy a domain, you can build a website, you can do everything a lot quicker than you could in your days. So I think that my parents are the type of people that they wanted me to study this year, and they very you have to go and study straight after school, otherwise you'll never study again. And they also, I think, very, very slim to how your dad was. So, and I think that in the digital age specifically, and tell me if I'm wrong, and please comment if I'm wrong, but I think that it is a lot easier to enjoy your life, to travel the world, to do everything as well as open a business. And I think that you can do a many more things simultaneously today with obviously our smartphones are the most complex advanced things in the world. So I don't know, it's just something that's been on my mind for a while.
It's easier to spend money today, Liam, in your time than in our time. We never had the distraction that we have today. I'm sure you'll agree with that bit. So you inspire me, Liam, because I love your energy, and I think the future for you is to be around people with great energy, because you've got all the mechanics to put whatever you want together. And innovation, as Piet said, is absolutely critical. So the network, there's a very big difference between network and people you know. You will develop your network. People will see your integrity. They will want to be around you. You need energy to mobilize anything. So you're 100% on the right path. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you, Craig.
Because I've got to rush into my next meeting. Like I said, from my perspective, I thought this was an extremely interesting call, and that's why I decided to join it. The one thing that I did learn in my life is the companies that are the most successful focus. You've got a choice between whether you build a business, whether you want to go and travel, whether we want to go to university. If your choice is to start out and build a business, that's got to be first and foremost on it. I hear you, we can do this from everywhere, Zoom calls. I don't even know what we got on the system today, but it's working fantastic. That's got to be your true focus and passion. Whatever you do, you can't do it half-heartedly. If you want to say you want to put this on ice and go and study for a couple of years, then that's what you've got to do. But I don't think you're going to win by trying to do everything at the same time. That would be my piece of advice. If you want to have the interaction and build networks and start a business, rather look to join organizations like young entrepreneurs or whatever it's called to get a base, to find a different thing. I mean, the IT studying, I mean, it's obviously a lot more course-based what one does. But if you want to win and you start out young, that's got to be your true focus and passion. I think if you're trying to do too many different things, remember, you always got to start off. The person you're competing against, you got to accept that you're competing a guy that's as good as you, that's only doing this.
So true.
That's got to be your mindset. If you are he will beat you. Unfortunately, that is the truth. You got to find the best people to run the race with you, and then you got to focus. If you feel you're not ready for that now, you got to get stuff out of the system, then I would propose get that out of the system, because if you want to win the race,
you have to work like someone's constantly working to beat you.
Yes. Okay, guys, I've got an 11 o'clock meeting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Piet. Thank you.